So,
That's funny, Kelly. I was
hey, Troy.
sending you a message to Teams. I can hear it pop through.
I know I started YouTube early. I probably didn't need to.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be ready to go.
So you have the ability to go in and do some trimming within the studio.
Okay.
If you ever tried that, if you want some help, I can show you how to do that.
Okay, let's work on that tomorrow. So it started. I'm just gonna let it go.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm sure if there had been, we would.
I think they might be able to hear us, so I'm gonna mute myself. Hi there. It's 7 o'clock. The council's extended their executive session for 10 minutes until 7:10. So they'll be back on in 10 minutes. Thank you. So it is 7:10 and the council is in executive session. They've requested another 10 minutes, so they'll be back at 7:20. Thank you. Are we back? Great.
We're back.
I'm here.
Great. So technically it's 7:17. We'll wait till 7:20. Get everybody on.
Hi, Bob.
All right, we got everybody back. 1, 2, 3, do a little head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who am I missing?
We have, okay, oh, there he is. There's Gary.
We got all 7 of us. All right, let's move on to then the Chapel Hill Civic Center contract discussion. Russ, you are up.
All right, good evening, council. Glad to be with you tonight. Want to give a brief introduction to the Civic Center at Chapel Hill. We've discussed this before in the past, and recently we've gone out for a round of reviews to look at an updated plan for that site. 3 of our council members were on that panel, including Councilmember Dickinson, Daughtry, and Ewing, as well as members of the Sewer District and Snow Isle Library, including Chai Ross, who's on with us tonight. So after a lot of deliberation and review of some really good proposals, and let me step back, the mayor and city administrator were also part of that review team. So with the review of all the exceptional proposals, we ultimately made a recommendation to go with the Stowe team. As mentioned in the staff report, we thought that they brought together a really solid team of local consultants and really captured, I believe, the mayor's vision and the city's vision quite well for the development of a civic center, and really met the needs that we had laid out for a library and some mixed use development. With that, I'd really like to turn it over to the council members that were involved in the process, just to see if you'd like to add any commentary tonight.
I was thrilled with this opportunity to hear the different developers, and the process was just amazingly open, and we got our questions answered, and I'm a question asker, so I was very pleased to get any questions I had answered, and the process was just thorough. I think you did a good job, all of you. Staff and the mayor did a great job. I was grateful to be part of it. That's all I have to say. Can't wait to see what happens next.
I don't have anything to add.
So by way of process, then the next steps would be we could bring it back to the council for their consideration and move forward on the contract. It sets out a process that would take us through the spring of next year, doing the public engagement both on the city side and the library side. As you've seen in the staff report, there's the scope and the fee. It's very well thought out. And the way it's developed, we can break out those individual sections if that's the desire of the council, to do the planning phase now and then go to construction at a later phase, or look for what the funding opportunities might be in the near future to build out the site. That's really all I wanted to share with the council. Mr. Stowe is in the audience tonight if you'd like to hear directly from him, or the mayor, Jean, and then again, the library representative is also available tonight.
Lisa.
Okay, not,
Yeah, looking for any input from the council on this, anything.
I impressed with the process, the collaboration that's taken place to the point. And I think it's great that we take these first next steps to see where we're at. Look through the proposal that was there for the initial contract, and I'm supportive of moving forward with that and taking this first step.
I gotta say that I've always been impressed with Bob Stowe and his group, especially when he was city administrator over in Bothell, and the things that he has accomplished over the last 12 years that I've been able to watch and be a part of from the outside. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do for us.
I'm ready to move this forward too. Bob, you've always done a great job. Look forward to working with your team.
Yeah, I think as a newcomer, I appreciate hearing folks that have worked with Bob in the past. Nice to meet you, and hold him in such high regard. I haven't seen anything at all in the plans that gives me pause. I look forward to next steps.
okay. Chai, would you like to add anything before we close this out, and we'll bring it back to the council for your action at your next meeting then?
Thanks, Russ. I don't have much to add. We've shared Snow Isle's sort of current situation related to working on a new facility with the council already. And I guess I'd just add that it's really encouraging and exciting to be a part of a process where we might be combining resources in order to make something great happen for Lake Stevens. And I look forward to the further exploration.
Great.
Yeah, that's great. I'll just kind of, and Bob, you got something?
No, I just want to say I'm really excited to be part of this project, working with the city, working with the sewer district and the library. Lake Stevens is a really special place in my heart. And so this will be a fun project to work with all of you on.
Great. I'll just kind of wrap it up here. I'm excited about this project. You guys know I am. There are challenges ahead of us. And it's going to take putting some good minds together and making sure that we can get through these challenges in a prudent way, making sure that we're serving our taxpayers. And it's one of the reasons why I'm glad Bob is on the team, because I think that he'll be able to find some creative ways to make some things happen for us in the future. And I'm excited about it.
Okay. Thank you, council.
All right, cool. Let us move on to the Snow Isle discussion. Gene, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Excited to bring this forward to council to discuss this evening. This process started 4 or 5 years ago already now, when the city developed the downtown plan. And that came after several years, I believe, of public input and public meetings and just a lot of work to develop the plan for downtown Lake Stevens. And last year, the city moved forward and we received grants, and council supported the renovation of North Cove Park and the construction of the mill. And we've seen all summer long how that's paid dividends with people attending the park and the farmers market that we've had. And we've seen an increase in sales from the businesses right across the street. You know, Subway has been selling out pretty much every week that the farmers market has been running. So we've done a really good job of boosting the economy in the downtown corridor. And the next step is to build the Festival Street, which we've named Millspur. And council took that action a month or so ago, and we are at about 95% design on that. We're in for permits on that currently. And we are gonna start looking for funding to fund that road. And with that comes having to move the library and the museum. And we've looked and actually started the process to do a boundary line adjustment just adjacent to where Millspur will be built, so that we can find a new location for the Grimm House and the museum. And what we've looked at or just kind of played around right now with is a joint building that could be shared with the museum, and the Row Club could share one building. They'd both have a storefront. Now, we haven't went to design or anything like that. It's just all preliminary talks. So in regards to the library, we've had discussions over the last couple of years with the library, throwing some ideas around of where they could relocate. And the focus is to find them a home and remain on a temporary basis if possible, but remain focused on Chapel Hill. The proposal that we've come up with is to potentially house them in the old police station. Council has funded in the 2020 budget. $200,000 has been set aside in the bonds that the city issued for the renovations of the new police department. $200,000 was set aside for the renovation of the old police department. That involves taking out all the sidewalks, disconnecting the utilities, jacking the building back up into place, reinforcing it, and putting a new foundation underneath it, putting all the sidewalks back in the like. During the discussions up to date, we have had meetings at the old police station with library staff. They've come over, they had a engineer or somebody they hired to actually look at the structure as well with our public works director. And they've looked at the existing plan of that building to see what walls could be removed. And they've discussed some ideas of what could be removed. And so that would be the proposal that the city would bring forward. We bring the building back up, some of the walls removed, a quick paint job on the inside, and it would be an offering to the Snow Isle Library System to move in there until a new facility can be built. So that's kind of what's before us this evening. It was important working with Mayor Gailey. We felt that we wanted to get this out in front of the public so everybody knew what was going on prior to issuing an official letter to the library and ultimately the Historical Society and the Row Club as well, because everybody's going to be impacted by this next phase of the downtown plan. I'm open for questions.
I don't have a question. I have more of a comment. I just would like to say 4 years ago, Kim, you were on the council with together. Putting this plan together was ambitious and took a lot of work, and growing can sometimes be hard. And it's not going to make every group happy. I think we've seen how the memorial turned out. It's gorgeous. They were concerned about it, but now it's a centerpiece there. Doing this festival street and putting this final piece into play, all I've heard is excellent comments about how great the downtown is turning out and how good it is. And growth can be hard. Change can be difficult for some people, but this is a plan, and I really hope we continue to execute to move this forward, as the downtown could really be something great as we've envisioned it for a long time, to be a conferencing center, having all these things, having spots for the community to gather, and the farmers markets have been terrific. And I have heard a lot from the businesses downtown Lake Stevens. They feel like this is such a bonus for the community. I look really forward to taking our next steps. And once again, I know growth is hard, change can be difficult, but this was a plan that we put in play several years back. And I look forward to seeing that continue to move forward.
Okay, so library, just have to say that word. This is, when I met Mayor Spencer, he showed me this vision that he had. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's really dramatic. And now that I see it evolving, it is amazing how that has woken up the downtown Lake Stevens. I'm very excited about what's going on down there. And much as I was a naysayer, I wasn't too sure about that. I now have to step back and say he was right. And I will always be the one standing in the corner and saying, make sure we don't forget the library. And I do hope that whatever is where they go is going to be temporary. That is my greatest wish, that it won't be taken as the solution. And that has always been my concern, that moving them somewhere else, working on a new building, doing all the work and spending the money to make it work for a library, for some may seem to be the answer. Whereas I know that the mayor and I share passion for going up to Chapel Hill and making that the Civic Center. And I think it's just a much better location. So I hope we will just continue to keep that in the long view, that is where the library should be, needs to be in every way. So of course, at my age, I want it to happen tomorrow because, you know, who knows? But I know this is going to take time, and I know there's a domino effect. So I'm doing all I can to reach out to the Historic Society and to the library to try and help us all along with this difficult, as Marcus says, a difficult change. It is a challenge for sure. Thank you.
And I'd
Very
just
well
like
said,
to,
Mary.
yeah, I'd just like to say, Mary, I like what you're saying, and Marcus, you and I have been planning on this thing for, you know, we've actually been doing this for our third downtown plan since we've been on the council. So I'm getting a little tired of downtown plans, and I am not in any kind of way wanting to do another one or change the plan we have. Now, I understand plans change. Somebody could have a great idea for the museum that we haven't thought about, or for the library we haven't thought about, and I'm willing to listen to all that stuff. But at the same time, we did make a decision. We have spent some money. We've spent a lot of money, and we need to get this completed because I think it's in the best interest of the entire community. We have committed to the museum and to the library and to the Grimm House that we're going to take care of them. And I know that we all agree that that needs to be done, and it needs to be done in a really gracious way. There is some pushback recently from, I guess, new people we haven't heard from before on the museum, and I don't think they understand what all of those conversations have been for the past 6 years or whatever it's been about moving the museum. I understand that people had put their blood, sweat, tears, and money into the museum and renovating the library. I understand all that. I want to make sure that the museum as it stands now is a part of our history in the new museum. And, you know, things move on, history moves on. We look back and see what's going on. And in the future years, we're going to look back and say, oh, that's where the museum used to be. And now we have a new museum. It looks really nice. And it's serving our citizens well. So that's where I'm at. We need to move forward. We move forward. We don't want to move backwards. We just need to make sure that everybody, all the citizens, understand that we know how important it is to have a great library in the future and a museum. And I'm looking forward to having a great big library up on Chapel Hill somehow. And in no way do I want them to be in any way in a temporary location that becomes permanent. That's just not the right thing to do. And so I'm on record right now, so that's not going to happen. So I'm going to make sure, do everything I can.
Kim, you make an excellent point, and a great example of everything you're talking about is the War Memorial. There was a lot of concerns that the old War Memorial would be forgotten, that all the sacrifices, all the effort that went into it wouldn't be honored. And a lot of effort specifically went into the War Memorial to make sure that it paid tribute, that it honored the original memorial in its new configuration. So I agree with everything that's been said. You know, it's just up to us to make sure that we're all communicating and taking time to educate the community on all those things that can be done and what our commitment is and all the effort that's already gone into this, and probably take the opportunity to remind them of the successes we've had in some of these efforts moving forward with all the plans that city councils previously have gone through to get us to where we are today.
I have a couple of questions just to make sure I'm following. Do we have a sense now about the timeline between when the library would relocate into a temporary space, let's say it's the police station, and when the estimated completion date of the Chapel Hill space would be built? How long would they be in a temporary space? Do we have any sense?
I'm glad you brought that up, Angie. I was going to bring it up before we close this topic. We've developed a draft timeline, and Kelly can share that this evening with you. But the date that we are toying around with in our mind to have everybody moved out of the existing area is May 30th of 2021. And the significance of that date is we have purchased the Butler home, and there's a lease back, a rent back agreement with the Butlers, and that ends on May 30th. And so that's kind of the target date to have the library moved into their new location, the museum moved out, and I had hoped that we'd be able to move them right into a new facility, but to build a new museum is going to take at least 6 months, and we just don't have the time. We'd lose a whole construction season to build the road, and the road needs to go in before the buildings go in. And so I've been working with staff. We've got some ideas of where we could potentially house them, and I'll daylight that as we start doing the public outreach portion here in the next couple months. But before you, thank you, Kelly, for sharing that. We've developed a plan of how to move forward. And again, it's draft form, but that May 30th date is a critical path. But between now and then, we'll start the planning and figure out how we can move and get all this work done.
And then what are we thinking the completion of the new library on Chapel Hill might be?
I don't know that we have a date for that, to be honest with you, council member. It depends on funding. It could be a couple of years. It's
okay.
The reality.
Okay, so I have two questions. I know that we've looked at, and Chai, I want you to chime in on this if you don't mind. I know we've looked at the police station, or the old police station. That's great. It seems like it could be doable. Has there been any thought to going into the old storefront up there that SARS used to be in for the library?
So Kim, we've not looked at any specific locations, but we've definitely kind of hypothetically planned what it might mean to be in a temporary short-term situation in something like a empty storefront type of facility. So we would be open to negotiating and exploring solutions along those lines as well.
You know, I'm not saying that we should abandon what we've already thought about, but I think that that's an idea that is worthy of looking into. I think it's more central. It gets them closer to where we're going to put them in the out years, whatever that is. Hopefully it is only a couple of years. That would be great. And so that's just one of those things I think is an idea that ought to be at least looked at. I'm not sure what the lease would be. I understand that they're having a whole lot of trouble getting anything in there in the first place. So I really don't know. It's just an idea. And I have forgotten my second thing. I totally forgot about it. So continue on.
Gene, this is Gary here. I just have a quick question for you regarding the rowing club. That is presently a private structure that's on city property. Are they going to, and now we're building a foundation for that building? Is that building become city property?
So here's the plan that we've developed, Gary. They actually got quotes to have the thing moved, and I want to say it was upwards of 50,000. We believe that we could partner with them and move that building using in-house staff and ingenuity. We've got a plan to do it. We would drag it around the corner essentially and face it due south out of the way. And the city, I'd mentioned before, we would fund building a new building, one structure that would be split down the middle with a condominium wall, essentially. One side would be for the row club, one side would be for the museum. Historically, the city's provided a space for the museum free of charge. We could do that. We could entertain a lease, but the conversations to date with the row club is they want to have a world-class facility. They just weren't sure how to reach that goal. The proposal that we have talked to them about, and it's not been in stone, it's just been conversation, is that if we provided this space, they would lease it, much like the row club down at Davies Beach leases that space. And we could do the same thing here. Should the row club decide they don't want to participate, worst case scenario is the city has a space right on Mill Spur Road that could be leased out for retail.
Okay, thank you. Just to further comment on the library, I sincerely hope whatever we decide to do, it is temporary. We do need to find a bigger, better facility for all those folks involved. Unfortunately, there's a lot of moving parts right at this moment, and it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward. But again, echoing Councilperson Dickinson's comments, temporary is the word of the day, and let's try to focus on that. So, thank you.
Jean, if I may, if you can pull up this configuration that we got in our packet of North Cove, because you and I and Brett Gailey and the Historic Society were together down there. And I think it might be useful if we could show on this map exactly where we were thinking about putting the rowing club / Historic Society building. Is that something that would be helpful? I don't know. I thought it was. All right, so where would that be?
Are you able to show that, Kelly? I'm not able to.
Oh yeah, you guys see my screen? I'm trying to share it.
Yep.
Do you see it? Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
So on the Festival Street, you can look at the southwest corner would be where the Grimm House would sit right in the corner, and then the museum and row house would be right next to it.
Hey, Kelly, I think you need to pop that back out. You can't see what he's talking about now. And
Oh, yeah.
actually, if you can,
Okay, I'm sorry.
if you can scroll it up just a little bit, or that's better right there. Perfect.
Okay. This festival straight here.
Yeah, so right to your left there, Kelly, where the little bulb is, right there, that corner down below, to the lower right there, just to the right, in that white area. Okay, so right there would be where the Grimm House would sit, just below that cursor. Immediately in the side yard would be the museum, and the museum would have a opening to the Grimm House, a roll-up door, whatever we come up with when we plan that building. They talked about a boardwalk, and in the current boundary line adjustment that we've been working on, we show a boardwalk in there because that was important to them. And then right next to it, heading towards Main Street in that same big building would be the row house right there, the boathouse, excuse me. Both would have independent storefronts is what we're thinking about, so they could sell their wares and baseball caps, whatever they choose to do. Separate entrances. What we've put in our mind is there could be a shared bathroom for both sides. In the middle, there'd be a common area and a hallway. So they have one bathroom that would share both spaces. And then both spaces could have a roll up to the back. Certainly it's needed for the boathouse side. I think it would probably be important to do it in the museum because we have no idea what the city may use that building for way down the road, 20 years down the road or potentially sooner. Who knows what changes will come with the city. But I believe in building the best building we can that's functional and could be used for various things. The front out on Main and the Festival Street, Mill Spur, just down a little bit, Kelly, to your left there, that would be potentially either a part of an RFP process like we're doing at Chapel Hill to construct a retail center there in exchange for building the Festival Street and possibly the moving to the Grimm House and all that. Or the other proposal that we're working on is we fund that stuff and we sell the front parcel independently to a contractor that would construct a commercial center. And there'd be some ties on that they'd have to do it in a certain amount of time, 2 years or whatever the city comes up with. So we're ensured that if we sell that, it will go to a commercial development in the downtown area.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yep.
Okay, I thought of my second question. And this one would be for Chai again. Let's just say that in the near future, Chai, that we decide that we're going to go ahead and temporarily move the library to the police station. is there a method that the snow aisle would allow us to do to have a big crew of volunteers come in and do the moving?
So Kim, if we were, seriously planning that, we'd have to dig into the details a little bit, but we're always happy to work with the community on participation and cost saving measures. I think, when we've talked about the challenges of doing tenant improvements, we're, really thinking about the kind of thing that to be to standard for a modern library, you kind of go into a space and do. And what you offer would certainly represent a savings, but again, we'd have to take time to look into the details, but we're more than happy to have those kinds of conversations with the community.
Well, I can just about guarantee you that we would have all hands on deck to get that kind of thing done. So if we could do that, then yeah, just packing books and those kinds of whatever it takes. We've got some amazing community members around here that love to do that kind of stuff. And I know that all we have to do is put the call out and it's going to be done. Probably a lot faster than you think.
I have a question for you, Gene. Has the historical had a discussion around the funding mechanism that they're going to be using? If you're talking about sharing a space with the rowing club who wants a world-class facility, and talking about the real estate expenses and the cost of building and doing all this to house them, it's rare for a city to fund something like this. Has a historical society talked about their funding mechanism and what they plan on bringing to the table with this?
Thank you, Councilmember. I appreciate that question. And it has been one that we've talked with the Historical Society about. And I've encouraged them to look for any grants that they can. Their response to that is they currently are looking, but they need to have a plan that they can show on their application. Whatever the grant might be out there, they need this plan. And so in my proposed schedule that I shared earlier, we would start planning that building in the next few months. We'd start that process. Then we'd have a plan. And in the meanwhile, they continue to look for grant opportunities. Other than that, there's been no other discussion about them funding it in a lease or anything of that nature.
I just mentioned we have been giving them the space they've had for free for a significant amount of time and helping them to help get their financial affairs in order, which I think is great. I look forward for them doing that, but this is an expensive endeavor. And I hope the group is prepared to come forward with a plan to help financially, make a great, historical museum for the community. I look forward to hearing their input on this and financially being prepared to hold their end of that up. So that's it for me.
All right, do we have any more comments on this subject? Great, well, perfect. We wanted to get everybody on the same page and see and let everyone know where we're at on this plan and things moving forward. And I think we got there tonight. So let's move on to the next subject then, which is the old sewer district. Gene.
Thank you. I'll try and make this brief. Several months ago, probably almost a year ago now, the sewer district was entertaining the thought of surplusing the old wastewater treatment plant site. At that point in time, the city expressed interest in having that site. It's just over 40 acres, I believe, 42 acres, and it's in a location where we don't have a lot of parks currently. The city has looked at expanding the UGA in that direction down to Sunnyside Boulevard, where this particular site is. And we see the potential for a park or some other type of use down there, and we would hate to see it go away. So the city agreed that we would partner with the sewer district. The city has funded a study using the Riley Group, and the Riley Group had gone in, and the first phase of the study was to go in and look at the history of the property. Because it's 42 acres, that's a vast area. We didn't have the history on that site, and anytime you're purchasing a site, especially, a site of this size, you need to know the history and make sure that it wasn't an old, landfill or a gas station. Who knows what could have been on this site? So we've hired the Riley Group to do that, and part of that history check was a recommendation to move forward on the next phase of doing some core borings out there. That means a machine would go out there, they'd collect samples, those samples would go to a lab, and it would tell us if there was any contaminants in the soil. And the first phase of their study told them where would be good locations to drill those holes. So we've finished step one. I just received that study. It's 289 pages, I believe. And so I will share that with council. I just got to figure out a way to do that so it doesn't plug up your email. But we just got that in the last day or so. The next step is $27,000 to do the boring and analysis of those samples. And once that's complete, we'll have a really good picture on what's at that site. I don't anticipate anything, but I would hate to accept a property that we don't have full knowledge of and the history of. So at any rate, that's kind of what's before you this evening. Just want to get your comments, make sure I'm not going rogue here on anybody, but it is a beautiful piece of property right down by the river.
I think great move forward.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's a couple of things we could do with some RC boating and other things in that space.
Gene, having been, I guess, a party to this discussion and seen it play out over the last few months, a couple of things come to mind. We've asked for a right of first refusal on this property currently. Would it be appropriate to put a letter of intent together to serve to the sewer district that we are serious about potentially acquiring this property, and then conditioned on the fact of a phase 2 environmental, because they obviously have made numerous mentions that they want to have a decision on this property. And so I guess the process, I'm just looking here at the assessor's valuation of $1.9 million on this property. Is that the type of dollars we're talking about for this property?
I appreciate that question, council member. My thought is, and this is just my thought, that it's part of the unified sewer system. And at such time the agreement is passed in 2032, all this stuff goes back to the city anyways. So it's my thought that it would transfer to the city earlier at no cost, because it is part of the unified system, in my opinion. Again, this is only my opinion. And we would be taking on the liability that the sewer district talks about at their board meeting, the liability of this property, because it's got to be mowed and maintained. So the city would be taking that on. I would see it would be free of charge, because it is part of this unified system.
And do we have any idea what it would cost to demolish all the structures that are on site?
We haven't put a number to that. I will do that. Let's get the whole picture. I agree with that, council member.
Yeah, as far as the liability side of the ledger on that, there is a fair amount of I wouldn't call it cleanup, but reorganization in order to make this property totally usable. Anyway, I guess we'll probably have more discussions on this, but are we prepared to have this discussion with the utility committee next Tuesday?
We are. I've already sent the study over to Tanya, so she has that. I think you might have got a copy of it too, Gary, as a utility member. If it didn't go through, it's because of the email and the size of it, but we will be discussing that. The other point of trying to keep this property is we've had discussions, and we do pay every year to the drainage district. And they did a study a number of years ago that showed a possibility of a pump station in this exact location. We know there's a pumping structure that exists today that's in very good repair down at the old treatment plant that could be converted into that exact pump station for the drainage district. So that's another thing that we've got in our mind of trying to reuse what's there, and all boats rise together, if you will.
All right. Last question. Do we have any idea? I totally realize this property's in the floodplain, but just looking at this map, there's some stream corridors and so forth on this property. Do we know how much of this property is, quote, critical areas?
I haven't looked at that, council member, but we certainly can. Right now, the discussions we've had in-house wouldn't be to put structures out there. It would be open space. It might be a park for people to fly drones. It could be an interpretive park, something of that nature. There is a potential of putting soccer fields out there, but we would have to look at that because that requires a pretty intense parking. One of the things we would like to do is try and raise that road grade up as you leave Sunnyside Boulevard. It's a pretty good drop and the visibility isn't so great. So that would be one of the first things that we would work on, and we'd probably propose doing an island annexation to bring this into the city.
Okay, great. All right. Well, more discussion ahead, so I appreciate those comments. So thank you.
Just as someone new to the discussion, I really appreciate all the information and the discussion. It's exciting to think about the potential opportunities for this piece of land. And so thank you very much for bringing this information to the workshop tonight. I appreciate it.
All right, we got any more comments on this? All right, good stuff. Thank you, Gene. Appreciate that. And we're going to go next to update on city goals and council retreat takeaways. Gene, you're up to bat again.
I'm so sorry for dominating the meeting tonight. This is unlike me.
No, you're good.
I'm going to keep this very short. This is just a housekeeping matter. We normally do this at the mid-year retreat as we go back and we look at retreat notes from January of what the accomplishments were that the council was looking to have happen in 2020. I've listed that and I've given the status of each one of these items. I'm not going to go down every one of them in the interest of time, but I am open for questions, and certainly we have our retreat coming up as well.
My only comment, Gene, is thank you. I know that it's difficult to keep track of all the things that council requests as part of the work plan throughout the year, and transparency is really important for the community to see all the good work that's being done. So I just want to say again, thank you, to the staff, to the mayor for all of the hard work and making sure that there's good accountability for all those things that we have set forth to be done in the city.
Jean, I just have one short question on the retreat takeaways. I'm assuming we're going to learn a lot more about the wetland resources adjacent to the community transit park and ride. We'll be talking about that at our retreat. Is that correct?
I don't recall if that is a topic or not. We did hire a consultant, Wetland Resources, to look at that site, but certainly if it's not on there, we can bring it up. It's not a long discussion, so let's plan that.
Okay, thank you.
And you know what, Mary, we can have it real quick. So we've done some wetland studies on those areas. We know what the wetland levels are to the east and to the west of the community transit parking lot. Mm-hmm. And we've had a discussion with community transit, with Emmett, and they would love to partner with us on some sort of a commercial development of that property with them, as long as they can maintain the number of spaces that they currently have. So what we're doing right now is we're asking the development community, hey, does this pencil out for you? Does it work for you? And if it doesn't, then we don't really have a discussion.
Okay.
But if it does, then we'll move ahead with it.
Okay, thank you.
Adding to that discussion a little bit, being on the CT board, I would think it would even be better if we could add some parking for CT in that park and ride because of what's going to be happening in the future. Because community transit is going to shift their focus pretty quickly to getting people to the light rail system. And a lot of that's going to be coming from Lake Stevens across the trestle. So once we can get the stuff going on 20th Street for the Bat Lane and all that, I think it's going to be a little easier for community transit. And that particular facility for them is already mostly full. I think it's at 85 or 87% capacity on most days. So, and we might want to even look at, could we add some capacity to that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And if there happened to be a developer kind of person in the audience who could maybe give us some numbers, see what he thought, that would be a great thing also.
I don't think he caught that.
I don't think he did either. He was working the numbers already. Any other comments on this? All right, perfect. So that's a good little cheat sheet for you guys, for y'all to take a look at for the retreat. All right, let's move on to the biennial budget. And I don't think Barb's taken this. I think Jean has taken it. After reading through it and after we put it on the agenda for tonight, and then we looked into some of the rules, I guess at this point, it's just for your situational awareness, because we really can't deal with this until 22 because of the time frame. So Gene, do you want to talk it, or do you want me to, or what are you thinking?
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I don't know that there's a lot of discussion needed. Certainly it was brought up by a citizen, a former council member, and we just wanted to make sure that it was addressed. Barb and I have had discussions about it. There's pros and cons which are listed. I believe Director Durpo and Colville was under this type of a structure, and it worked well for them over in that community. But the timing's off for us to do it this year. We've already started our budget process. But if it's something that the council members feel they would like to do a little more research on, we could certainly bring it back. We've got lots of time, clearly.
One of the things that I noticed in this report was that there's a cost savings due to staff time, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to have a number assigned to that. What is the potential cost saving? I understand there's a lot of wiggle room in that particular number, but if there's, if it's significant, I mean, that's obviously something when I first read it, I was going, nah, I don't think so. And then I got to reading some of the rest of it and go, okay, I've got an open mind on this. Let's see what it really is going to do for us. But I think if we have a monetary number to what the cost savings they think that the staff thinks that they could come up with, it would be helpful.
We could do that, council member. One of the thoughts that I had is everybody understands the amount of work we have going here in the community. And so the staff would be focused on other items. The one pitfall that I see, if we go in this direction, I want to make sure that rules and protocols are in place to keep council in the mix of what's happening. I do not want you to get lost and not understand where the budget is. That is my only concern. And so we'd have to put systems in place where we're frequently reporting so the council's comfortable every step of the way as we move through this 2-year cycle, if that's what we choose to do.
Yeah, I'd love to see the numbers as Kim noted, and also like Berg's comments on what her thoughts are on, as our financial director, what her thoughts are.
So June, you didn't have this in Monroe, did you?
I did not. I'm not very familiar with it, but I'm willing to learn and try something new.
I wasn't trying to go that direction, but okay.
Gene, it'd be interesting to know if having the biannual budget has any specific impacts to the annual auditing process. So that could be something if we could get some information on. It's probably nothing, but it's likely worth asking because it'll definitely impact staff work.
I will confirm that. I believe they still come. They just do a shorter audit. So they come every year still. It's just a shorter audit.
I'm not sure if Bob has got a cut on his tongue from not trying to talk or not. He certainly has some input, but I know he knows he can't do it.
Glad to provide input whenever you request, but I'm sure listening.
All right, great. Anything else on this subject? All right, perfect. Let's move along then. And we're going to talk about current grants. Russ, you're up.
Okay, thank you, council. Just wanted to quickly run through for just council's benefit, the types of grants that we've received over the past few years and where we're continuing to look for grant resources. Like Gene, I won't go through everything, but I'll give you just sort of a flavor. So we've been successful in getting different types of grants, everything from planning and related grants for some of the work that my team does to grants for parks and the construction of parks. You've seen the benefit of those at Frontier Heights, at Cavallero, most recently at North Cove. And we have a couple of grants out this year for other improvements. We were successful both from Complete Streets as well as some other types of transportation grants to do some pretty significant work on 20th Street to start our trail infrastructure around the lake and continuing to look for those examples. Obviously, facilities, we've been reasonably successful as well. Everything from the current temporary city hall to the mill. Going into this next year, we're going to be looking for, or over the next few years, up to another almost $6 million to complete the downtown program. Obviously, continuing to look for trail dollars as we look at the Powerline Trail, extension of South Lake Stevens Trail, and then looking for some private grant sources as we continue to do improvements to our parks. Again, this was just more for information for the council, but if you have any questions or thoughts, I'm happy to take those and answer anything I can. Okay, thank you, council.
All right, and that comes to the end of our agenda. Great input tonight. I always enjoy some frank discussions with council members because everyone has their perspective, and it's we don't always think everything at in the city hall side, so it's always great to have some extra input from the seven of you on all these issues. Council President Tagit, do you have anything else for tonight? You're muted.
You're muted.
Nope, that was the complete agenda.
Excellent. Okay. Are we good? Are we gonna open up or are we good, Marcus?
I mean, I guess I could bring up, last week we heard from I think it's Race to Equity. There were some comments made that I've been shared with by other council members that there's some concern there about some things that were said. So I think this would be a great opportunity for myself and the mayor to reach out to them. I don't know if I've got different messages from different council members. Be a great opportunity for us to reach out to them and just want to make sure that they're the right group for us, the council members here. And I also heard there's some concern over filling out information as that information could be made public, and it's kind of our personal thoughts. So if anyone's got a comment on that, I don't want to go over this a long time, but I'm hoping that we have the right training for our community and for our council on equity and inclusion.
Yeah, and I'll back up President Tadgen on that. I sat down on Monday to sign the contract with this group, and I just had some reservations due to some of the things that were said by one of the proposed instructors, as well as some of the Open Meetings Act issues that I have with the training. I'm concerned that it may not be as frank as it should be due to the setting that it's going to have to be in. So I think we, like the president said, we need some input from y'all, see where we want to go on this. Yeah.
I'll just chime in. I think it's great to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we all feel comfortable moving forward. This is the activity that we were emailed. I've definitely done that in other trainings, and it was never expected that that information be shared. It was more to sort of bring awareness to yourself and bring that into the meeting, but not with an intent to share the information. So I think it would be really good to clarify with them what is expected that we do with that information. So, and I think it's a really good point that having it be at a public meeting, sort of changes the tenor a bit. And I think it's important that as trainers, it sounds like they have experience with other municipalities, but it's certainly important that they understand, just kind of what that brings to the mix. So I appreciate that you're willing to reach out to them.
Okay, so the problem with this conversation is that we just put out there that there's something that we were supposed to fill out for a public meeting. And that all of a sudden just becomes a Public Records Act request.
What?
There's no way around that right now. So if we fill that out, then somebody can request that as public records. So therefore, I'm not filling it out.
I would just like to add that I appreciate those folks being at our meeting last week. I appreciate them giving their bios, I guess, and expertise in what they're trying to accomplish and so forth. The frustrating thing for me was I had gone to their website previous to that meeting and tried to get a little more background information on these folks, just to know who they are and get familiar with them and so forth as to what their experiences are. And there's, other than a 5-paragraph, I don't know how to describe it. It's not a bio, it's just a description of what Bernardo is about. The other person on the website is a gal that obviously was not at our meeting. And I don't recall her name right off the top of my head, but just clicking on the simple website of the About button doesn't give you any information. And so I just thought it's a little odd that a firm that is kind of dealing in, I wouldn't say it's public relations, but certainly personal relations, doesn't have more information. And so I just, we're looking at spending 3 to 6 hours with these folks over the next couple of months. And I just like to know a little bit more about what they're about. And other than having the 5-minute discussion at our council meeting last week, there's no trailers there. So I don't know. I'd like to know more about the group as to what they're doing and who they are and why they do what they do.
Mary?
I just think maybe Anya is the one we need to talk to since she has directed us to this group, and that would probably clarify. There she is, bingo. I didn't have that problem, but then I didn't think about things becoming public record. And I can understand that may be problematic, although everybody knows I'm an open book. You can't, whether I should be telling people things or not, I tell them anyway, but still, I can understand someone else having an issue with that. Understandable, totally. Here's Anya.
Hi, good evening. I talked to the mayor about this today, and I think Angie is right about the self-reflection worksheet. I think it's not meant to be turned in, and maybe it's a better idea not to fill it out at all, and more of an internal thought process of the questions that were asked, just to get you prepared and primed kind of to go into the training and get your thought process straight. I think that was more of the intention from what I understood when having conversations with Racing to Equity. I think we could probably explain a little bit more about who they are. I know I think in the staff report, or if maybe it was mentioned in the meeting, that they do have a lot of experience with municipalities. They've done work with Port of Seattle. I believe they're doing work currently with the City of Auburn and other public schools throughout the state. I think they've also done work with Snohomish County. Definitely, they've done leadership conferences for Snohomish County, and I think another city up north of us as well. I don't recall which city.
Anya,
but if you would like me to reach out, go ahead.
So sorry to interrupt. I thought you were finished. It was also I recall them either saying or having in their proposal that they were in the midst of redoing their website, maybe. Does that ring a bell for you?
I don't recall that. No. But I'm happy to reach out if you guys have further questions. I can reach out to them, or President Tagent, the mayor, are welcome to reach out together and get some clarifying questions if need be, if that would help in your decision process. I know at this point they're scheduled to come to our retreat next Friday, so I'd like to give whatever notice I need to give them, respectfully.
So I think just my 2 cents. I appreciate, it's a significant topic, and it would just be helpful for me, because I, like Gary, went to the website and was wondering why a group that is held in such high esteem had such limited public information available. And so I'd love to get more on that, and also kind of like we did when we were doing the Civic Campus, look at different options and look at the ways out, the pros and cons, and what we as a council want. I think it's great, Anya, that you and Angie and the mayor kind of went over some of those things that I think it'd be helpful if we had more input from the council as a whole, so that we're on the same page, especially with the amount of resources that we're going to be investing into this in terms of time and funds.
We did look at a few proposals from folks. We did reach out to several different entities trying to get the right training for council. And we did have a process on the outside. So if you want more information, I'd be happy to share that as well on what we looked at. And further options, if you would like further options.
Anya, you just made a comment as to the right training for the council.
Exactly.
I guess I'm wondering, what is the right training for the council? Second question I have is, how much have we appropriated monetarily for this endeavor?
So first question, when I say right training, a lot of the entities we looked at are doing training for workplaces on this topic. And when I speak of a right training, I'm thinking of a training that encompasses, what an elected official is looking for, not just a workplace discrimination training. So we wanted something that is broader, that's going to be more educational and awareness, so you guys can make decisions in the community versus decisions within a workplace. So that's kind of what I was talking about the right training. Your second question, can you refresh that one for me? Sorry.
How much are we spending on this activity? What's the cost?
There's no budget per se, but there is a training budget that council has that I talked with Barb about, and there is funds to cover that. We also were granted or had potential to use a grant from the Community Foundation of Snohomish. They were going to offer us $5,000 to help cover the costs if we used Racing to Equity.
Specifically, how much is it costing?
So the contract's 11,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for clarifying the first part of my question. So thank you.
No problem.
I would propose this. I would propose that we have Anya set up a meeting between myself and Council President Tagent as soon as possible, maybe tomorrow, if they can get on board with it, so that we can do some clarifying questions and just make an assessment if this is the right way we want to go with this.
Okay, great.
So could I just add in, I think, I'm thinking about the retreat we had at Semiahmoo, and, there were a couple community members that participated in person, and that was great that they participated with it being a remote setting, and anyone being able to participate. I think that's going to impact the dynamic of that. And so I'd like to make sure that we have, as much consideration as is feasible for that dynamic. I think it'd be good to have open and frank discussion, but I also know that what we say is carefully scrutinized, and so it's not always used in the best way, and not always in context. And so I just want to make sure that it's a safe place for people to share their thoughts. And with the current climate and what the thoughts that I'm hearing from people and weighing in the comments directed towards council members and city staff and things, I don't know how safe that environment is for some.
Well, we can always take a look at the venue and where we'd hold the meeting, so we can look at that and we can make changes to it if we feel appropriate to do so. Steve, great point.
Okay, so let's, Anya, can you set that up for us?
Yep, I'm on it.
All right, great discussion on this. It was something that was weighing on me. I was thinking through it on the weekend, and I appreciate everyone's input on this, and we'll get there. We'll get there. We just want to make sure it's a value added exercise for everybody, and we'll get there. Perfect. All right. So with that, President, anything else?
Nope. Let's adjourn the meeting.
Let's adjourn the meeting and note that we are under 9 o'clock. It's 8:24. All
Good
right.
night, everyone.
Good
Be safe,
night.
everybody. Do good things.
Bye.